All right, so looking at proving ground number 2. This is about thumbnailing and then also using those thumbnails to do a quick process critique, right? Now there's lots of ways to critique your own work. I'm going to go ahead and do the first step, which is to post my 3 sketches on my concept to fulfill this brief, this problem of an Earth Day achievement badge. So I put my name, and then I'm going to post my sketch. And it is really helpful if you label your sketches. So which ones are you intending to fulfill the central symmetrical requirement? Which ones are you intending to fulfill the dynamic requirement? And which ones are you intending to fulfill the positive play of positive and negative space requirement? And then you hit reply, so it posts, right? And that meets the criteria for the first part of the rubric, right? And you can definitely post more than 3, but you need 1 that shows central symmetrical, 1 sketch that shows dynamic, and 1 that shows a play of positive and negative space. If you do that, get full marks. We all want full marks on all of our proving ground rubrics. Next process is to write a response to at least 1 participating class member that gives your opinion and your input on their thumbnails. Specifically, which one of their sketches has the most potential for a finished logo? And what suggestions, critiques do you have about that approach? So I won't, in the video, I'm not going to single out anyone's work, right? So I'm going to pretend that this is by someone else because I'm pretty good at being hard on myself, right? And I'm going to give a critique, and it can be a completely positive critique. Nothing wrong with that, but this is also where you can offer opportunities for improvement, right? So I'm going to say, I like the idea. You don't have to give your name or anything, though it will be labeled with it in the discussion. I like the idea of the stump with the new growth. I think you are trying to show optimism for improving the Earth, right? So it is nice if you try to say something about what you think their symbol means in the context of an Earth Day achievement badge. And if you're choosing to do a symbol that has nothing to do with Earth Day, please label what your personal theme is, right? I want to do a logo for my dog walking business. Here are my 3 approaches. So that we can see it in the right context. Okay, so I think you are trying optimism for trying doesn't work. Showing. Okay, but what I have not done yet to meet the rubric is I haven't declared my preference for which one of their approaches I think is most successful. And I'm going to be blunt. I don't think the dynamic approach is clear. But the other 2 make sense. Okay, so that's good. That's almost there. That gives the constructive criticism where your dynamic one is not clear to me. But I need to meet the rubric, I need to make it clear which one I prefer. And this is tricky, and this is why it's helpful to get multiple points of view sometimes. So of these 2, I think the one that's maybe most clear and interesting is the positive negative space one. But I can see an argument made for the central symmetrical as well. Because the new growth actually fills the space of the stump. Okay, so I think the positive negative space sketch has the most potential to feel optimistic and transformative because the new growth actually fills the space of the stump. Because what do I want from an Earth Day achievement badge that my scout will earn? I want it to show that their efforts can make a difference, right? Can be transformative to the old growth. All right, so good. So now I have met both requirements, right? Except that you don't get to comment on your own. So we want to start clicking on the replies underneath our fellow students to reply to theirs. And I'm going to pause it here, and then we'll start with what we do with the sketch that we like the most. All right, we waited a little period there for you guys to get your sketches up and to write a response to someone else. Now we're going to take those responses, we're going to think about them for our own work, right? And if we haven't gotten any responses on our own work yet, we want to really critique ourselves and think, first of all, which one am I most interested in turning into a final portfolio piece? This will be the first vector we make. Which one do I think will be the most clear, the most engaging, the most versatile as just black shapes? And then we're going to move on to assignment 4. So assignment 4 is when we create this vector for ourselves. And it's always helpful. I call it a vector logo mashup because it's always helpful to have not just a symbol in your mind, but to have a symbol and an intention in your mind. So something that you're trying to get from the symbol. So a past example was this. We were doing kind of parodies of fast food logos, right? And so I wanted to play with the Kentucky Fried Chicken mascot, the Colonel, but I had an intention behind it, right? Like, what do I want the audience to get from that symbol? And I wanted it not to seem healthy, right? So that was my intention. And so my sketch had to do with, my rough sketches had to do with figuring out how to make it still look like the Colonel, but also look kind of like a zombie skull. And then this was the finished black shaped logo, and then the color version just added that kind of color field behind it. So I have another link to those same slides that we've been looking at. This is what you want from your black shaped graphic symbol, your black shaped logo. This is a combination of Nico the Nighthawk with a skull, right? It's a Day of the Dead kind of symbol. What we don't want from our sketches or from our logos is something that's more illustrative, more outlined. That's a different skill we'll be learning later. So this is about simplifying. Now your refined sketch can be just hand sketched like this, or it can be composited. So you can even find elements and then like arrange them together, distort them, scale them. These are ones for the Veterans Center, last year. And then we're going to take that refined sketch and we're going to use it as our template to build our vector shapes in Adobe Illustrator, right? To make them really clean final logos. So, using mine as the example that we're doing so far, I posted, gotta refresh, my little tree stumps. And my favorite one was the positive negative space. So what I'm going to do is open that sketch, which to be really organized, I should mark as orange. This was for the proving ground, and I'm going to put it into my master folder, and I'm going to create within assignment 4 a proving ground 2 folder, right? Put it there. But I'm going to open that up in Adobe Photoshop just to refine the sketch. Using raster imaging is the best way to have full control very easily and refine the sketch. Now, here's the thing. I like the idea here. I even like that simple little leaf form there. I like this stump better, right? So this is kind of the advantages of sketching digitally. I'm going to use my compositing knowledge, and I'm going to grab this stump and duplicate it, Command J, And then I'm going to use Command T and make that a lot bigger. Okay. Then I'm going to go back to my background layer, and I'm just going to grab the interior here of my positive negative space, duplicate that, put it above, and transform that so I can play with the proportion and the angle. I want to center it a little bit more. So using our compositing skills that we've learned, I'll fill the background now with white. Edit fill. I'm going to turn this into a refined sketch. So what does a refined sketch look like? Looking at these slides again. This is what our proving ground sketches look like, right? To turn the chosen approach into a refined sketch, we have to understand how those lines, those outlines of the sketch, translate into black shapes. And the reason I use this example, though this is a pretty nitpicky graphic for our campus, kind of a Renaissance Nico, notice how those same outlines yield both this design and this design, depending on which shapes get filled in and which ones are left out. You can see that in the eye. You can see it in the helmet, right? And then you have to decide which one is strongest. And this was my refined sketch, just taking this one and making it all black. And then that's what informed the finished logo, the finished black vector shapes. So if you can really control your refined sketching, then you know exactly what your vector is going to be. And the difference is being able to scale it as a vector, and then we can do color variations very easily. Again, thinking in terms of shapes, not outlines. So, going back to Photoshop here for my refined sketch, I need to turn this into black shapes. But I want to play with all the proportions. So I'm going to also transform it and kind of tug it this way so that that's more centered. And I might even warp it or distort it, just so those roots are kind of working. Or I might erase away from it. And I might redraw. I just use my brush tool, really small. All right, so now I'm ready to do a refined sketch. So I make a new layer on top. I'm going to use my brush. I'm going to use it at 100% opacity. I'm going to use it not 100% hard, but between 90 and 95 hardness. And I pick the size. And then in order to get it to be kind of cleaner as my sketch, I have some options. I don't need my stump to be all that clean, but you have what's called smoothing as an option for your brush here. So as I go into the inside, I want this to be nice and smooth, at least in my intention. So I'm going to smooth that up probably to about 50%. And then as my hand shakes, it's going to smooth it out, but it's also going to slow it down, because I want this to have a slightly different personality. Than the outside shape. And it will also get you a little bit introduced, I'm messing up there, to how smoothing works. You see, it doesn't work there. It rounds things out too much, but it really worked well on the inside. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to turn the smoothing off. And this is what I have so far, right? Really clean on the inside. The white space is what matters. On the outside, it's going to be more jagged, more organic looking. So now I'll continue.